Welcome to the Gilbert Public Schools Be Well podcast. Here are your hosts and Be Well coaches, Morgan Party and Nick Cornell.
Welcome to our Be Well podcast. I'm Morgan.
And I'm Nick. Noreen, Roman, so good to have you with us. It's awesome to have you join our Be Well podcast. Can you give us a little background, Noreen, on how long you've been in GPS and a quick history of your background and what you've been doing and what prompted you to want to do what you do?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me to be here today. I love talking about this subject and it's very near and dear to my heart. So I really appreciate the opportunity. I work as a school psychologist in the district. I'm currently at Campo Verde High School. This is my 24th year as a school psychologist. I also have been teaching at the community college. I've been teaching psychology for the past 15 years. And a few years ago, I started branching out and seeing some outside private clients doing life coaching. And also I became a certified hypnotherapist. I started doing hypnotherapy with private clients as well. And, the overarching theme in all of those environments where I was working was a need for stress management and self-care. I was observing it in my students at the high school. I was observing it in the staff. I was observing it in my students at Chandler Gilbert. And many of my clients were coming to me with, symptoms and issues related to a lack of self-care and a lack of effective coping and stress management skills. And so it kind of became an accidental, area of research for me because, I see so many people around me feeling so depleted and so anxious that I started researching it a little bit more, started looking more specifically into mindfulness techniques and principles, and developed some workshops associated with that I've delivered in multiple domains at this point, multiple areas. So that's kind of how this came about for me.
Awesome. And you're so right. Like I see it at the elementary level, even like with kids and staff and just the community in general, especially after the pandemic,
For sure. The pandemic's definitely exacerbated a lot of those tendencies we were already seeing, where people were allowing themselves to get overly anxious, overly depleted and not addressing it as it was cropping up, but waiting until they were starting to have physical symptoms or anxiety attacks or whatever, and then recognizing how big of a problem it was really becoming. And so I think it's so important to get the message out that self-care is something that shouldn't be in response to a crisis, and it's definitely not something that should be looked at as selfish behavior in any way. It's a necessity. It's our job, really. It's our responsibility to make sure that we are taking care of ourselves so that we can continue meeting our obligations and being the best that we can be and, following through with our goals for ourselves. People who work in public service, teachers in particular, are so notorious for putting themselves last. They give and give and give. They give to their parents, the parents of their students. They're giving to their students. They're giving to the school. They're giving their time, their attention, their love, their concern. But then when it comes to self-care, it's only when there's time, and when is that time ever just going to magically show up? It doesn't. And carving out that time and making it a concerted effort is something that I'm trying to promote.
Awesome. Well, I've been really lucky, Noreen, because I've gotten to be in your workshops twice now, and I've loved both of them, and they've been really, really enjoying. I've learned a lot from you, and so it's been awesome. What are some situations that would prompt a person to practice mindfulness? And what type of issues have become more severe due to the pandemic?
Yeah. Well, mindfulness practices are really important for anyone who has the goal of having a life that's filled with more happiness, more joy, more ease, more contentment. If that is something that you want in your life, mindfulness practices are for you. Mindfulness practices are very straightforward. They're very quick and easy in many cases, but they do have to be practiced consistently. It's like working out a muscle. And the fact is, when we have a goal and we're working toward it, we have to give it our effort and energy consistently. Just like if you're working out a muscle of your body, if you want stronger arms, bigger biceps, you have to give those biceps your time and attention. You can't achieve it by doing nothing. You can't achieve it by walking every day. And walking every day is expending energy, but it's not toward the goal, right? And so when it comes to creating a happier, more contented existence, you have to give concerted effort and energy to those practices that get you there. It's not going to happen through negative self-talk. It's not going to happen through self-deprecation. It's not going to happen through saying no or saying yes when you really mean no, or by stretching yourself too thin on a daily basis. And so it's a mental shift and a behavioral practice, really, to get the mind to the point where thoughts of happiness, contentment, and appreciation are free flowing and not just, dug up occasionally, but that we actually have a full mindset shift happening. We have so practiced our mindfulness techniques that they come naturally to us, that we look for opportunities to feel appreciation and show appreciation, as opposed to what most people do is spend a lot of their energy without even knowing it, concentrating on the negative aspects of life, concentrating and thinking about stress-inducing things, allowing their energy to be affected by negative things in the media, negative people, situations that drag us down. You have to become more mindful, excusing the pun, you have to become more mindful of where you're giving your energy, and where you're giving your attention. And, I think that the pandemic has shown us, it's put it right before us, where we can't look away from it, how important strengthening our own immune system is, strengthening our own resiliency factors, having those coping strategies for when very, tumultuous times approach and affect us. And so the more we practice it, the more we can pull it out when we have those instances. It's not something we have to teach ourselves. It's something that we're doing already. Stress management and mindfulness practices are highly correlated to stronger immune systems. I mean, the research is very clear about that. And I think when we talk about things like, the pandemic, we spend a lot of time talking about how to avoid the germs that could make us sick. We talk very little about what we can do to bolster our own immunity. What are the activities that we can do that actually bring us feelings of peace and calm and strengthen our bodies and strengthen the neural circuitry in the brain responsible for bringing us pleasurable thoughts and experiences. Spending time with mindfulness practices and showing gratitude and appreciation on a daily basis actually strengthens the circuitry in the brain responsible for feelings of happiness and joy. And it actually shows over time, in just an 8-week period of time, Nick, you can actually reduce the volume in the area of the brain responsible for the fight or flight mechanism, which so many of us are have right now overly sensitive regions of the brain responsible for fight or flight. People being thrown into fight or flight in innocuous situations where nothing really dangerous is happening. They're just overwhelmed suddenly with a feeling of fear or anxiety. That part of the brain is just being overly active. And mindfulness techniques and other types of self-care actually can be a buffer against that from happening.
Wow, that was awesome, just your explanation there. And you actually answered questions that I was going to ask, but do you have a maybe a starting point kind of self-care tip?
Yes.
Like you said, it needs to be consistent, but like how often should a person do it? And like, just like, where's the starting point? I guess I'm asking.
That is such a great question. The starting point is to recognize that you need to become an observer of your thoughts. We all have this mental chatter, this narrator in our brain constantly talking, constantly chattering, noticing random and non-random things. And we have to become conscious of what those messages are that are being repeated over and over in our minds. And we need to recognize that we are not our thoughts. We are separate from our thoughts. We are the observer and the experiencer of our thoughts. We can change those thoughts if we want to. And it's very, very important that we learn how to do that. So stepping into an observer mode is step one. So recognizing, taking a third party look at the way you're using your mental energy. So if I've spent the last 10 minutes tearing myself down, my appearance, my intelligence, the way I behave, the way I handle the situation. If I spend 10 minutes in my mind mentally tearing myself down, what's the emotional cost? And then once you're in that emotional place, what's the behavioral cost? How are you going to spend your time and energy now, right?
Right.
But if you notice a minute in, 2 minutes in, that you're doing that to yourself, you can hit the brakes and recognize that you have a choice. You can think about things differently. You can say to yourself, I'm not going to tear myself down over this. I can look at this with a different point of view, or I can refuse to think about it in the moment. I'm going to think about something, that makes me feel a little bit more pleasant right now, or a little bit better right now. Or maybe I need to wait and think about this at a time where I can be more level-headed about it, but I know where this is headed. I know if I continue down this road of this negative self-talk, where it's going to lead. It's going to pull me into the abyss. It's going to pull me into a negative and dark space, and that's going to continue to affect me. So my recommendation is start practicing watching your thoughts. You'll be surprised at how frequently negative thoughts just interject themselves into our minds and lead to other negative thoughts, and it becomes like a chain reaction.
And that makes so much sense, because when you're around like negative people, and then that gets into your mind, and then it just feeds off of everyone. Like, it's so easy to just,
You see how it becomes a chain reaction very quickly. And that's such a good example, Morgan, because if you are in a situation where you're venting with other people who are also aggravated and stressed and upset, how quickly everything escalates. You might have noticed that, and it takes one person to shift into a different gear for it to start to diffuse, right? One person to say, well, I know all that's stressful, but let's show appreciation for this, or let's think of it a slightly different way, or let's go more general. Let's stop thinking about all the specifics that make us angry and stressed, right? Let's get a little more general. It only takes one person doing that to diffuse it and start moving in a different direction. And the same can be true of the own thoughts you're having in your mind. Thoughts are very sticky. They're very magnetic. So if you're having a series of negative thoughts, those thoughts are reaching out and grabbing similar thoughts or thoughts that are even worse. But the good news is positive thoughts are exactly the same. Positive thoughts are also sticky. They're also magnetic. So if you have a thought that is slightly positive, that thought will reach out and grab another thought that is similar, and you can go on a different trajectory. The reason it sounds or feels difficult is just because it's not practiced.
Right.
We practice the negative chain reaction sometimes all day, every day. We're not practiced at the positive chain reaction. And so it's a technique, it's a skill, but it's something that you can learn, and with time and effort become better, better at it over time. The next important thing to remember is to not judge yourself in this process, right? Sometimes people will abandon the effort because they're judging it and they feel bad about how poorly they're doing, or how hard it is, or how it doesn't feel real or authentic. And I just would like to encourage people to observe your thoughts, but not to judge them. There's no point in doing that. It's not helpful. You don't want to say, oh, there I go, thinking negative thoughts again. I'm such a negative person. Like now you're defeating the purpose, right?
Right.
The whole purpose is to feel better. So we definitely don't want to go down that road. If you can observe them in a more impartial way without judgment, that's really going to be the key. If you can't stop the negative cycle, you can always bring it back to the breath. You can always focus on your breathing. You can do some deep breathing exercises. You can do a few repetitions of mindful breathing. You can, distract yourself. Find something that's distracting. Your favorite song, your favorite picture of your loved one, cat memes. I don't care. Ever put you on a different trajectory, I would highly recommend until you're more practiced, at this. So yeah, those are some starting places, I would say.
Is there a way to, sorry, Nick, is there a way to, how do you start those positive thoughts though? Like, and I know, I feel like gratitude would be one, like thinking of all but is there a tip for that?
I just want you to imagine for a minute, two people waking up in the morning facing their day. One person wakes up and immediately starts thinking about their stressors. Before their feet even hit the floor, they're already thinking about this meeting and that project and this deadline and whatever. And then they start thinking about the fact that that's making them feel miserable and it's not fair. And I really don't like my work. And I'm really mad that I have to get up so early. And I'm really mad. And so they set themselves off on a trajectory right away to feel negative, to feel stressed, to feel overwhelmed. And by the time that person even steps in the shower or whatever they're doing to get ready, they're already overwhelmed, because what they're doing is they're feeding their mind negativity from the moment their eyes are open. And we do this because we were practiced at this. We think it's somehow protecting us or helping us to worry about our daily stresses from moment one, when nothing could be more untrue. Imagine the second person waking up and immediately saying, oh, thank you for another day. It's another opportunity for me to grow and learn and to be in this world. Thank you for letting me be in my body. There's air in my lungs. It feels good. And making a conscious effort to look for things during the day to appreciate.
Okay.
The fact that they had a good night's sleep, the fact that they have hot water in their shower, the fact that they're having a good hair day. I don't care what it is. If you have a conscious effort, a concerted effort to look for things to appreciate and to show gratitude, it's harder to put that person in a bad mood. It's harder to rock that person's boat with an unexpected stressor, because they're so well practiced at finding the good in things, right? And that's not to say that stresses aren't going to happen. I mean, that is life. Our life is stressful, and we are surrounded by negativity. There's no getting around that, unfortunately, right? And people love to spew negativity and share it. Like when they're feeling bad, they love to infect you with their negative feelings, right? But if you do take, okay, so you start your day with an attitude of appreciation. Maybe you end your day with a gratitude journal. Maybe you make yourself in the beginning, every night before I go to bed, I am going to have 3 things and show extreme gratitude, no matter how basic they are. It could be that you had the best tasting cup of coffee that day. It could be that your child, who's been giving you grief, suddenly turned their grade around or offered to do something to help. It could be that somebody else took something off your workload today. Or that you just had a bright, beautiful sunshine that day. It doesn't have to be complex. It's just practicing and strengthening that neural passageway that brings joy and pleasure into our brains and into our minds. And simple things like that can be a great starting point.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I sure appreciate all this information, because I think I needed to hear all this today. So thank you very much.
We all do, right? I do too.
Yes, we do. And another thought, Noreen, as I think I've shared with you, Be Well, we're looking at offering virtual mindfulness classes to our GPS employees that need them that could use this benefit next school year. What would a mindfulness class look like?
A mindfulness class would probably look like walking people through examples of how to enact these strategies into their daily life. Having a dialogue with people about what are your stressors and what are the thoughts that you're observing and how do they affect you and how can you turn that around, and working with the students in that class to come up with very realistic plans for setting them on the course of mindfulness practices that work for them. Because some people, they love affirmations, and some people love meditation, but it's really offering a variety of things where it feels very accessible to every person, where they can go, oh, I can't do those 3 things, but I can do this. Okay, well, that's the strategy that works for you. Let's start using it right away. Let's give concrete examples. Let's have discussion about that. But mindfulness is just one tactic for increasing the self-care that people really need to start building upon and improving upon in their lives. And I would love to see us be able to branch out and talk about self-care in all the different domains of their life, whether it's their psychological state, whether it's their physical environment, whether it's their whether it's their academic life or their work life, whether it's their physical surroundings or their relationships. All of those different domains need addressing, and they can be overwhelming for the average person to sit and really address all of those areas without some coaching and without some activities to guide them.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Nick. I really, like I said, this is such an important topic and such a passion of mine. So every opportunity I get to talk about these things, I truly appreciate.
We
Thank
so
you.
appreciate you for doing this as well. And so thank you for sharing your ideas with us, and we're looking forward to next year.
You're so welcome.
GPS is lucky to have you, Noreen, and thanks for all you do for so many students and staff and GPS. So we appreciate you and look forward to you being a part of our Be Well adventure.
Well, right back at you, Coach Cornell. If anybody gives the example of how to live a positive life, it's you.
Thank
Truly.
you so
Totally.
much.
You
It is.
inspire me and so many others. So.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in, GPS, and as always, be well.
Be well.